Smoke rose in thick black lines across the alien sky, and the cries of the wounded echoed through the village. The raid had ended only minutes ago, but the ground was still shaking with fear. In the center of the chaos lay the old man, the tribe's elder, his chest torn open from a brutal strike. Blood poured from his wound, and his breath rattled like dry leaves. Warriors stood around him, whispering that it was the end. Their healers shook their heads, saying the damage was too deep, no one could stop death now. His daughter knelt beside him, her hands trembling as she pressed cloth to his chest, begging him not to leave her. Her voice broke, but no one moved to help. To them, it was over. The old man had given his last breath to the battle, and nothing could change that. Then a human pushed through the crowd. He was not from their people, not bound by their customs, but he looked down at the elder with fire in his eyes. "He is not gone yet," the human said firmly. His words were met with silence, and then scoffs. The aliens muttered that humans were weak, fragile, and foolish. They said he would only shame himself by touching their elder. But the human ignored them. He dropped to his knees, ripped off his jacket, and pressed it hard against the bleeding wound. The elder groaned in pain, his body twitching, but the human didn't stop. His hands moved quickly, his mind racing with fragments of field training he had once known, memories of patching up soldiers in desperate moments. He shouted for hot water, for clean cloth, but no one moved. Only the girl obeyed, rushing to bring what he asked, because her eyes burned with a small spark of hope. The human tore strips of cloth, his fingers moving with rough skill. He sealed the wound as best as he could, forcing pressure, refusing to let the elder slip away. When the old man's breathing faltered, he tilted his head back and forced air into his lungs. Gasps spread through the crowd. They had never seen such a strange method, such desperation to steal life back from death's hand. Sweat dripped from his brow, his arms trembling, but he pressed harder, whispering, "Not yet. You don't die yet." The girl watched him, her lips quivering, as if she could not believe what her eyes showed her. She had grown up hearing that humans were frail, unworthy, that their strength was a lie. But here was one human, covered in dirt and blood, fighting with his bare hands to keep her father alive when her own people had already given up. The elder's chest rose weakly, a faint breath slipping out. The human felt it, seized on it, and worked faster. Minutes stretched like hours, and the silence of the crowd grew heavy. They no longer mocked. They no longer scoffed. They stared wide-eyed as this stranger did what none of their strongest could. The girl clutched her father's hand, tears streaking down her cheeks. Every time her father's breath faded, the human dragged it back with sheer will, pressing down, forcing rhythm into the dying body. His arms shook, his lips were tight, but he would not stop, not until the old man chose to live. Then, slowly, the elder's chest began to rise on its own, shallow, weak, but steady. His eyes fluttered open, cloudy but alive. A wave of gasps rippled through the crowd. The impossible had happened. The elder lived. The girl cried out, her hands covering her mouth in disbelief. The human leaned back, his body shaking, his face pale, but a grim smile touched his lips. He had done it. Against all odds, he had pulled life back from the edge. He looked around at the shocked faces of the tribe, their whispers filling the air like storm winds. "He saved him," one voice muttered. "No one has ever." Another whispered, "Impossible." "A human?" a third said, half in fear, half in awe. The girl fell to her knees beside her father, her hand brushing against the human's arm. Her eyes met his, full of something between gratitude and confusion. She whispered softly, "You saved him. You saved my father." The human only shook his head. "I did what had to be done." But deep inside, every heart in that circle knew something had shifted. The custom of their people was clear. When one pulled another back from the brink of death, their lives became bound. Families tied, debts sealed, and fate rewritten. The girl's breath caught as the weight of this truth fell upon her. The human, still catching his own breath, had no idea what he had just triggered. He thought he had only saved a dying man. He did not yet understand that in saving the father, he had also claimed the daughter. By law, by custom, by fate. The crowd bowed their heads in respect to the elder who still lived. But their eyes lingered on the human, not with hatred anymore, not with weakness in mind, but with something sharper, heavier. He had broken their belief of what humans were. He had stepped into their law without even knowing it. And as the elder's hand squeezed his daughter's weakly, a whisper spread through the crowd like fire. He belongs to her now, and she belongs to him. The girl's heart pounded, her chest tight with fear and shock. She looked at the human again, and for the first time, she realized her life had just changed forever. The fire in the village had died down, and smoke curled in the air like a ghost that refused to leave. The elder lay inside his home, weak but alive, his breaths shallow yet steady. Around him sat his people, silent and uneasy, while the human stood to one side, his clothes still stained with blood. He thought it was over, that he had done what anyone should do, save a life if they could. But the tribe looked at him with eyes that carried something more than gratitude. They carried judgment, and they carried law. An old voice rose from the back of the gathering, sharp and heavy like stone grinding against stone. It was the council speaker, a woman with lines carved deep into her skin. She looked at the human, then at the elder's daughter who sat by her father's side. Her words cut through the silence. The life was taken back from the brink. By our custom, the bond is sealed. The girl's head shot up, her eyes wide in shock. No, she whispered, shaking her head. That cannot be. But the whispers from the crowd grew louder, all repeating the same thing. The law of their people was ancient, older than any of them could remember. A savior of life bound themselves to the saved family. It was not gratitude. It was obligation. And when the savior was not kin, the bond was sealed by giving the daughter into his care. The human frowned, not understanding the weight of the words. What bond? What are you saying? He asked, his voice sharp with confusion. He had no interest in strange laws or customs. He only wanted to keep the old man alive, to give the daughter back her father. But the council speaker's gaze did not soften. She repeated it slowly, as if speaking to a child. By saving him, you have claimed her. She is yours by custom. The girl's face burned with shame and anger. She stood quickly, her fists clenched, her voice breaking. I do not belong to him. He is not of our blood. He is not of our people. I will not be given away like cattle. Her words echoed through the chamber, but no one spoke to support her. Instead, some looked down, some looked away, and some nodded firmly. The human took a step back, his eyes wide. No, that's not what I wanted. I didn't save him for this. I don't want. He stopped, unsure what to say. The tribe's customs were like chains he could not see, tightening around him without his choice. He looked at the girl, saw the fear and fury in her eyes, and his chest tightened. He had not meant to trap her. The elder, lying weakly on his bed, stirred at the noise. His lips parted, and though his voice was fragile, the whole room fell silent to hear it. The law cannot be broken, he whispered. His daughter turned to him, tears welling in her eyes. Father, please, do not say this. You cannot give me to him. He is a stranger. But the elder only looked at her with sorrow. He is no longer a stranger. He is bound, and you are bound. His words, though soft, landed with the weight of mountains. The girl turned away, her body trembling, her throat tight as if the air itself had betrayed her. The human clenched his fists, wanting to argue, to shout that this was madness, that he had no right to claim her. But before he could speak, the council speaker raised her hand. It is decided. By sunrise, the bond will be honored. The daughter will belong to the human. The room exploded with whispers. Some said it was an honor, others called it dangerous, but none dared to challenge the law. The girl stormed out of the room, her footsteps sharp and angry, leaving behind her father and the man who had unknowingly tied his fate to hers. The human followed her outside, the night air cold against his skin. He found her standing by the edge of the village, staring at the burning horizon. She did not turn to him, but he could hear her breathing hard, like a storm trapped inside her chest. I didn't ask for this, she said, her voice low and shaking. Do you understand? I don't want this. He stepped closer, careful not to touch her, careful not to break what little space she still had. I know, he said softly. I didn't ask for it either. I only wanted to save him. Nothing more. She turned then, her eyes sharp with tears. But that doesn't matter. Our law does not care what you wanted. It only cares what you did. And now I am tied to you. Her voice cracked, and she bit her lip to hold back the sob rising in her throat. The human felt the weight of her pain like a stone in his chest. He wanted to tell her he would fix it, that he would fight the law, but he could see in her eyes that such a fight was useless. The law was older than both of them, stronger than both of them, and unbending. For a long time, they stood in silence, the night wrapping around them like a shroud. The stars above burned cold, watching, indifferent to the lives below. Finally, the girl whispered, almost to herself, "You saved my father. For that, I cannot hate you, but I cannot accept this either." The human lowered his head, his jaw tight. "Then we will find a way. Together or apart, I will not chain you. Not by choice, not by force." Her eyes flickered at his words, searching his face for any sign of lies. But all she found was honesty. Still, it did not free her. The law was not a man she could argue with. It was a wall that stood forever, and tomorrow, at sunrise, it would fall heavy on them both. Behind them, the village whispered like restless wind, waiting for dawn, waiting for the bond to be sealed. Neither of them slept that night, both carrying the same question burning in their hearts. Was this fate a gift or a curse? The morning sun rose slowly, painting the sky in shades of red and gold, but the air inside the village was heavy like iron chains. People gathered, waiting to see the bond made real. Some stood in silence, others whispered about what it meant for their tribe to give one of their own to a human. The human himself stood near the elder's home, uneasy and restless, his heart pounding with every glance he caught from the villagers. He had never asked for this, but the law moved faster than his will. The girl appeared, her steps sharp, her jaw tight. Her eyes were cold as she looked at him, not with thanks, not with kindness, but with fire. She walked straight past him into the open circle where the council waited. Everyone watched as she raised her chin, her voice loud enough for all to hear. "I refuse." The word rang like a stone dropped into still water, sending ripples through the crowd. Murmurs rose, disbelief, shock, even anger, but she stood tall, her fists clenched. The council speaker stepped forward, her face lined with years of judgment. "You cannot refuse. The law binds you." The girl's voice shook, but it did not break. "I am not cattle to be given away. He may have saved my father, but I will not belong to him." Her eyes flickered toward the human, sharp and accusing. "He is not one of us. He does not deserve me." The words cut him deeper than he expected. He had not wanted to claim her, but hearing her voice filled with such defiance against him made his chest heavy. He clenched his jaw, forcing himself to remain silent, but every eye in the circle turned to him. The council speaker looked at him and asked, "Do you deny the law? Do you refuse what has been given to you?" The human took a step forward, his hands open, his voice steady though his heart thundered. "I never asked for this. I did what anyone should have done. If she does not want this, I will not force her." For a moment, the crowd stirred, confused, torn between the strength of their ancient law and the simple honesty of his words. But the council shook her head firmly. "This is not about what either of you want. This is about the balance. When life is pulled back from the brink, bonds are tied. If they are broken, chaos follows." The girl shouted back, her voice full of rage, "Then let chaos come. I will not bow to a human." Her words made the people recoil, gasping at her boldness. She stormed out of the circle, her footsteps echoing like thunder against the earth. The human followed, but slower, unsure if chasing her would make things worse. He found her outside the village walls, standing by the river where the water rushed cold and fast. She was trembling, her arms wrapped around herself, but her eyes burned with anger. "You don't understand," she spat as he approached. "You don't know what it means for me. To be tied to you is to lose everything. My freedom, my honor, my place among my people." He stopped a few feet away, keeping his distance. His voice was quiet, heavy with guilt. "I never wanted to take anything from you. I didn't come here to bind you. I only wanted to save him. That's all." She turned sharply, her eyes sharp like blades. "Then why did you not let him die? Why did you not leave him as the others did? If you had walked away, I would still be free." Her words stabbed into him, and for a moment, he could not speak. The truth was simple. He could not walk away. Not then. Not ever. His heart would not allow it. Finally, he said, "Because that's not who I am. I could not watch someone die if I had even a chance to stop it, even if it cost me." The silence that followed was thick. She looked at him, searching his face for weakness, but all she found was determination. Her anger did not fade, but confusion slipped into her eyes, just for a heartbeat. Then her voice broke into a whisper. "Do you not see? You shame me. My people see me as bound now, and if I resist, they see me as dishonoring my father. Either way, I lose. Her shoulders slumped, her strength cracking, and for the first time, he saw the pain behind her fire. The human's fists clenched at his sides. He wanted to tell her it would be fine, that he would protect her from this, but the words tasted false. He could not fight a law that had lived longer than their names. He could only promise her one thing. I will never chain you. No matter what they say, no matter what they expect, you will decide who you are. Her lips parted, her breath caught, and for a moment her anger faltered. But she turned away quickly, hiding her face. Words are easy. The law is not. Behind them, the sound of drums began to beat, slow and heavy. The tribe was gathering again, and the council would not let the matter rest. The girl's defiance had sparked something dangerous. The people whispered of broken customs, of bad omens. The air carried tension, like a storm building at the horizon. She looked back at him, her voice soft but bitter. If they force this, then know one thing. I will never belong to you. Not by choice. He met her eyes, steady, though her words cut deeper than blades. Then I will never claim you. Not by force. The drums grew louder, calling them back, but both lingered by the river, caught in a storm of law, pride, and chains neither of them had chosen. Inside the village, people waited, ready to see if ancient custom would bend or if two young lives would be broken under its weight. The girl's fire burned bright, her resistance unshaken, and the human felt the wall between them growing higher, even as fate tied them closer. The law could not be broken. By nightfall, the decision was clear. No matter how much she resisted, no matter how much he tried to refuse, the tribe pressed them together. They did not call it marriage, but it was the same. A bond of obligation, a bond of life. The human found himself walking beside her through the village, every eye on them, some filled with curiosity, others with suspicion. The girl's face was hard as stone, her steps quick, as if she wished she could leave him behind. But she could not. They placed them in the same dwelling, a small home near the edge of the village. It had once belonged to a fallen warrior, and now it became theirs by decree. The human stepped inside, the air thick with silence. She stayed by the door, her arms crossed, her chin high, her eyes sharp. He knew what she was thinking, that he would try to claim her, that he would act as if she was his prize. Instead, he walked to the corner, sat down, and began to clean the blood from his hands. She watched him, confusion flickering in her eyes. She expected demands, commands, maybe even arrogance. But he only sat quietly, saying nothing, doing nothing to push her. At last she spoke, her voice like ice. Do not think I will serve you. Do not think I will bend to you. This house is mine, not yours. He looked up at her, his eyes calm. Then keep it. I never asked for this, and I don't want to own you. Her jaw tightened. His words should have calmed her, but instead they unsettled her. She turned away quickly, hiding her face. The silence between them stretched long, broken only by the crackling of the fire. Days passed like this. They shared the house, but not their lives. She kept her distance, cooking her own meals, sleeping on one side, ignoring him whenever she could. He did not fight her. He gathered wood, repaired the roof, and worked in the village fields when asked. He acted as if he was simply passing through, as if he would leave when allowed. But small things began to shift. Once, when the rains came, the roof began to leak above her bedding. She cursed and tried to fix it herself, climbing clumsily, but the human took the tools and finished the job in silence. Another time, when her water pot slipped and shattered, he carved a new one from wood and left it by her door without a word. She wanted to stay angry, wanted to hold on to her pride, but each quiet act made the fire of her anger flicker weaker. Yet with every kindness came new tension. She mocked his strange human food, wrinkling her nose at the smell of dried meat he carried. He laughed softly at her disgust, offering it anyway. She refused, but later hunger made her taste it in secret, and she found herself unable to admit it was good. He, too, learned from her. She showed him how to weave nets for fishing, her hands moving fast, her voice sharp as she taught. He failed the first time, tangling the rope so badly that she smirked in victory. But when he tried again, slower, careful, he managed it. The smirk faded from her face, replaced by a look she quickly hid. The villagers whispered. Some said the bond was taking root, others said it was doomed to fail. Enemies outside the tribe saw it as weakness. Rumors spread of rival warriors planning to test the human to prove he was unworthy of their laws. One evening, as the sun set, she confronted him. "Why do you keep doing this? Helping me? Fixing things? Living as if this is your home?" Her voice shook with frustration. "You should have left. You should have gone back to your own people." He stared into the fire, his face lit by the glow. "Because if I leave, they will turn against you. They will say you dishonored the law, and you will pay the price. I can't walk away." Her throat tightened at his words. She wanted to hate him, wanted to believe he was just another outsider forcing his presence. But deep inside, she felt a crack forming in the wall she had built around her heart. Still, her pride was strong. "You may stay, but you will never have me," she whispered fiercely. He looked at her then, his eyes steady. "I never wanted to have you. I only want you to be free." The silence that followed was heavy, almost unbearable. She turned away, her chest tight, because his words struck deeper than any command could. That night, when the village drums sounded in warning, the fragile wall between them cracked further. Raiders from a rival clan had been spotted near the forest. Warriors rushed to defend the borders, and whispers filled the air. If they attacked, they would test not only the tribe, but the strange human who lived among them. The girl stood in the doorway, watching the fires on the horizon. Fear crept into her chest, though she tried to hide it. The human strapped his blade to his side, readying himself. She glanced at him, her voice quiet but sharp. "They will come for you. They will try to prove you are nothing. Do not think I will save you if you fall." He gave her a small, grim smile. "I wouldn't expect you to." But in her heart, she knew the words were lies. She did not want to admit it, but if he fell, something inside her would break too. She turned away, hiding her fear, hiding the truth even from herself. As the night grew darker and the sound of war drums echoed through the valley, the human and the alien girl stood together in silence under the same roof. Forced closeness had become something more complicated, an unspoken bond neither of them wanted, yet neither of them could deny. And outside, danger crept closer, ready to test how strong that bond truly was. The night was heavy with tension, the drums still beating in the distance as the village prepared for danger. Torches lit the paths, warriors sharpened their blades, and whispers moved through the crowd like restless ghosts. Everyone knew the rival clan would strike soon. But no one said it aloud, that their real target would not be the elder or the village, but the human. He was the weak link, the outsider, the one whose presence mocked their traditions. The human sat near the fire, tightening the straps of his worn armor, while the girl watched him from the doorway. Her chest felt tight, though she refused to admit why. She had told herself she didn't care, that his fall would mean her freedom. Yet, the thought of him lying broken in the dirt sent a sharp ache through her heart. She turned away quickly, her hands trembling. When the attack came, it was sudden and violent. Shouts split the air, arrows hissed through the sky, and flames licked at the edges of the village. The rival warriors burst through the outer defenses, their eyes gleaming with hunger for blood. At their center was a huge fighter, scarred and cruel, who shouted for all to hear. "Bring me the human. Let us see if he is worthy of our law, or if he bleeds like the rest of his kind." The villagers froze, torn between shame and fear. Some whispered that perhaps it was better to let the rival clan take him, to prove he did not belong. Others clenched their weapons, unwilling to surrender anyone from their village, no matter the law. The girl's heart pounded as she saw the rival warriors storm closer, their eyes fixed on the small house at the edge of the settlement. She turned to the human, her voice sharp with warning. "They are coming for you. Run while you can." But he shook his head, standing tall, his eyes hard. "I won't run. If I run, they will burn everything behind me. I won't let that happen." She wanted to scream at him, to call him a fool, but the words caught in her throat. The sound of steel clashing outside drowned her silence. The enemy reached them quickly, surrounding the house, their blades flashing in the firelight. The leader sneered, pointing at the human. "You saved one old man and think you deserve our respect? Tonight we break you. Tonight we show the tribe your weakness." The human gripped his blade, his knuckles white. His heart pounded, but he stood firm. The girl stepped back, fear clawing at her chest, her pride cracking as she realized what was about to happen. The first warrior lunged, swinging hard. The human blocked clumsily, the force of the blow rattling through his arms, but he did not fall. He pushed back, his blade striking with raw, desperate strength. The clash of steel rang through the night, each strike a test of his will. More enemies rushed him, circling like wolves. He fought, every move fueled not by skill, but by determination. His arms burned, his lungs ached, but he refused to step back. He thought of the elder gasping for life, of the girl's sharp eyes watching him, of the whispers that called his kind weak. And with each thought, he struck harder. The girl could not stay back any longer. She cried out as one enemy nearly broke past him, aiming for his back. Without thinking, she grabbed a fallen spear and hurled it, striking the warrior's side. He stumbled, and the human finished him with a quick strike. Their eyes met for a brief second, her face pale with shock at her own action, his lips curling in a grim nod of thanks. But the battle was far from over. The rival leader charged, his strength far greater than the others. Their blades clashed, sparks flying, the sound sharp and brutal. Blow after blow pushed the human back, his legs digging into the dirt, his body screaming with pain. The girl shouted for him to stop, to run, but he ignored her. He knew if he fell, she would be taken, and the village would be crushed. At the final moment, when the rival's blade nearly struck his chest, the human twisted, using his body weight to slam the enemy into the ground. He grabbed a fallen weapon and drove it down, ending the fight with a roar that silenced the field. The rival clan froze, shock written on their faces. Their leader lay in the dirt, defeated by the very human they had called weak. The villagers gasped, their eyes wide with disbelief. The human staggered, blood dripping from his wounds, his body shaking, but he still stood tall. The enemy withdrew slowly, dragging their fallen leader away, their shouts bitter with shame. The raid broke, their strength shattered. The village was safe for now. The human dropped his blade, his knees nearly buckling. The girl rushed to his side, catching his arm before he could fall. Her hands pressed against his wounds, her breath trembling. "You fool," she whispered, her eyes wet. "Why did you fight so hard? You could have died." He looked at her, his voice ragged but steady. "Because if I didn't, you would have been taken, and I couldn't let that happen." Her heart twisted at his words. She wanted to deny it, to tell him she didn't care, but the truth burned in her chest. He had fought not for himself, but for her, for her father, for all of them. The villagers gathered around, their eyes filled with something new, respect. No one whispered weakness now. No one mocked. They had seen the humans stand against death and win. As the torches flickered in the night and the cries of battle faded, the girl held him tighter, her walls beginning to crack. For the first time, she saw him not as a stranger forced upon her, but as someone who chose to protect her when no one else would. And in that moment, though her pride still burned, she realized her heart was no longer safe. The village was quiet after the battle, but the quiet was heavy, like silence after thunder. Houses were burned, warriors nursed wounds, and the air smelled of smoke and blood. Yet in that silence, something had changed. The human was no longer looked at as a weak outsider. The people now whispered of him with respect, even fear. They had seen him stand against warriors stronger than him, and they could not deny what their own eyes had shown. The girl stayed close to him that night, though she tried to hide it. He was bleeding, his arm cut, his ribs bruised, but he refused to rest until others were safe. He carried water to the wounded, helped rebuild fences, and refused any food until the children of the village had eaten. She watched him, her chest tight. Every time he winced in pain but kept moving, something inside her broke a little more. Later, when the fires were low and the people slept, she sat with him in their small home. He was trying to stitch a wound on his arm, but his hands shook from exhaustion. Without a word, she knelt beside him, took the needle from his hand, and began to sew the cut closed. He looked at her in surprise, but she kept her eyes on the wound. "You should let the healers do this," he said softly. "They are tending to the others," she replied, her voice low. "You always wait until the end. If I don't do it, you will bleed out just to help someone else." He smiled faintly, even though his face was pale. "That doesn't sound so bad." Her hands froze for a second, then tightened on the needle. "Do not speak like that," she whispered sharply. "You may think your life is small, but you don't know what it means to me, what it means to my father." She forced the needle through, her hands trembling, her throat tight. The human said nothing, but his eyes softened as he watched her. When she tied the final knot, she sat back quickly, refusing to meet his gaze. Her heart raced, her mind a storm of feelings she could not understand. She wanted to stay angry, but every time she looked at him, she saw the man who had risked everything for her. Days passed, and slowly, the wall between them began to crack. When she cooked, she found herself making enough for him, though she told herself it was only to stop him from starving. When he worked in the fields, she walked beside him, showing him how to use the tools properly. He listened carefully, never mocking, never arguing. Sometimes she caught herself smiling at his mistakes, not in scorn, but in quiet amusement. One evening, her father, still weak but recovering, called her to his side. His voice was soft, but his eyes were sharp. "You see him now, don't you? Not as law, not as chains, but as a man." She looked away, her cheeks hot. "I didn't ask to see him." Her father gave a faint smile. "We do not always choose when our eyes open." He reached for her hand, his grip weak but steady. "Do not let pride blind you. He is not of our people, but his heart is true. That matters more than blood." His words lingered in her chest long after she left his side. That night, she lay awake, staring at the ceiling, hearing the human's quiet breathing across the room. For the first time, she wondered what it would mean if she did not fight him anymore. The next morning, she found him outside, working with the children, teaching them how to make simple traps for animals. The children laughed, chasing after him, their voices bright. She stood there watching, her lips parting in disbelief. No human should have been able to win the hearts of her people so easily. Yet here he was, not by command, not by force, but by kindness. When he noticed her watching, he gave her a small nod. Not proud, not demanding, just a simple gesture, as if saying she belonged in that moment too. Her heart skipped, and she turned away quickly, though warmth burned in her chest. But the peace was fragile. Whispers reached the village of another threat rising, one greater than before. Some said the rival clan would return. Others spoke of raiders from far away. The council warned everyone to be ready. That evening, she sat by the fire with him, the flames casting shadows across his tired face. She finally spoke the words she had held back for so long. "Why do you keep risking yourself? You fight, you bleed, you give everything. And for what? This is not your people. This is not your fight." He looked at her, his eyes steady, his voice low. "Because it became my fight the moment I saved him. Because it became my home the moment they tied me to you. I didn't choose it, but I will not run from it." Her chest tightened. She wanted to argue, but the words caught in her throat. Instead, tears burned in her eyes. "I told you I would never belong to you. But now I don't know. I don't know if I even belong to myself anymore." He reached out, not to touch her, but to let his hand rest on the ground between them, open, waiting. "Then decide for yourself. Not for them, not for the law, for you." She stared at his hand, her heart pounding, her pride screaming at her to turn away. But slowly, trembling, she laid her hand over his. The touch was small, uncertain, but real. For the first time, she did not feel chained. She felt free. And in that freedom, she realized something terrifying. Her choice was no longer to resist him. Her choice was whether to let her heart fall completely. Outside, the wind carried the sound of distant drums, a reminder that danger still waited. But inside their small home, for one quiet moment, there was only warmth, only two hearts drawing closer, breaking down the last walls between them. The warning came at dawn. Scouts rushed into the village, their voices sharp with fear. The rival clan had returned, this time not with a handful of raiders, but with an army. Torches lit the horizon, drums pounded like thunder, and the sound of war echoed across the valley. The people trembled, for they knew the battle would decide their fate. And in the center of the village stood the human, blade in hand, his face calm, though his heart raced. The girl stood beside him, her eyes wide with fear, but also something stronger. She had chosen to stay near him, though she could have hidden. Her father's weak voice echoed in her mind. "Do not let pride blind you." And so she stayed, though every breath felt like it could be her last. The enemy came fast, their war cries tearing through the morning air. The ground shook as they charged, and fire spread through the trees. The village warriors gathered to defend their homes, their children, their lives. But the rival clan was larger, stronger, and filled with rage. They wanted to destroy the tribe. They wanted to kill the human who had shamed them. The first clash was brutal. Steel struck steel, screams filled the air, and the dirt quickly turned red. The human fought at the front, his blade heavy, his arms burning, but he refused to step back. He moved with desperation, not elegance, but every strike was fueled by the will to protect. Warriors twice his size fell to his determination. Still, the enemy pressed hard, and the line began to break. The girl grabbed a spear and fought too, her heart pounding with terror, but her spirit unshaken. She had never trained as a warrior, yet she stood beside him, striking at any who came too close. When her spear shattered against a shield, the human shoved her behind him, taking the blow meant for her. His side burned with pain, but he kept fighting, teeth clenched, eyes blazing. The elder watched from his home, weak and pale, but when he saw his daughter fighting with the human, his eyes filled with tears. "The bond is real," he whispered, though no one heard him. The rival leader appeared, larger than the rest, his scars like dark rivers across his skin. He bellowed for silence, pointing his massive blade at the human. You who dare take what is not yours, you who disgrace our laws, face me now!" The human stepped forward, blood dripping from his side, but his grip steady on his sword. The girl clutched his arm. "Don't," she begged, her voice breaking. "He'll kill you." He looked at her, his eyes tired but filled with fire. "If I fall, they'll take you. I won't let that happen." Her tears spilled, her chest aching as she whispered, "Then I'll fight beside you." The leader roared and charged, their blades meeting in a storm of sparks and fury. The clash was like thunder, shaking the air around them. The human staggered under the strength of the blows, his body screaming, but he pushed back with every ounce of will he had left. The leader struck again and again, each hit nearly breaking him, yet the human would not fall. The girl could not stand still. She grabbed a fallen dagger and rushed in, striking at the leader's arm. It was a small wound, but enough to distract him. The human seized the chance, twisting his body and driving his blade deep into the leader's chest. The rival roared in rage, then collapsed to the ground, his lifeblood spilling into the dirt. For a moment, silence fell. The rival warriors stared in shock, their leader dead at the hands of a human. Then, like shadows, they broke, retreating into the forest with shouts of fear. The battle was over. The village had won. The human stood shaking, his blade falling from his hand, his chest heaving with exhaustion. The girl caught him before he fell, her arms wrapping around him tightly. Tears streamed down her face as she held him. "You fool," she whispered, her voice trembling. "You saved me again. You saved all of us." He tried to smile, his voice weak. "I told you, I won't let them take you." The villagers gathered, their faces filled with awe. They had seen the human fight with a courage that no one could deny. No longer an outsider, no longer a stranger, he was one of them. Respect shone in their eyes. And even those who once whispered against him now bowed their heads. The elder, weak but smiling, was carried forward by two villagers. His voice was faint, but strong enough for all to hear. "The law is fulfilled," he said, "but today I see something greater than law. I see choice. I see my daughter standing not because she must, but because she has chosen. And I see a human who gave us more than strength. He gave us hope." The girl looked at the human, her heart pounding, her walls gone. She whispered the words she had never thought she would say. "By custom, I belong to you. But now I choose to." His eyes widened, his throat tight, but before he could answer, she pressed her forehead against his, her tears warm against his skin. The crowd erupted with cries of victory, but in that moment, neither of them heard. For them, there was only the quiet truth of two souls bound not by law, but by love. The war drums faded into silence, the fires burned low, and the morning sun rose higher. The village would rebuild, scars would remain, but something new had taken root. A bond that no custom could have forced, no battle could have broken. A bond chosen freely, between a human who would not give up and a girl who had once sworn she never would. And in that choice, the future of both their worlds changed forever.